saw a lot of, and I have a lot of slideshows of this, where I guess I would call it curb appeal. And one of the things that we see in, and again, that's why it'd be nice to have a good projector here, is that in a residential setting, you typically have a front porch, doors and windows facing the street. We had, a period of time here in La Crosse where buildings would go up and there was no doors or windows facing the street. The other thing is, and we're experiencing this now, and you can see this in some slides, so think about this when I'm talking, is that, 30 plus years ago, we had the Dutch elm disease. And in a lot of residential areas, single family, multifamily, a lot of trees did not get replaced. And so that kind of talks a little bit more about curb appeal. Now we have this emerald ash borer that's going on. So we had areas of the city that never had their trees replaced. And now we're going to have a lot more trees, another 5,000 trees lost. And so now I think we're going to be playing catch up for a while. And so in a lot of, this whole idea the city had is if you didn't go to tree school, you didn't get a tree. So I don't know how the city's going to move forward, but I guess as long as I'm talking to a group today, going forward, I think the city needs to work with all property owners to get trees planted on the boulevard because of the beneficial effects of trees, not just from a curb appeal standpoint, but for environmental reasons. So you'll see this kind of siding. This is what we call T111 siding. In the new ordinance, you can't have T111 siding. Again, there's no windows or doors facing the street. Now, in terms of safety, if you're in an area that has a lot of multifamily housing, if you have doors and windows facing the street, people can see what's going on that street. I think people walking up and down the street, I think in the college area, co-eds, walking to and from classes, afternoon, evening, whatever, if you have doors and windows facing the street, there might be a chance that somebody sees something. And so it's not just, from an aesthetic point of view, why we want doors and windows facing the street. We want them because I think neighborhoods are safer if we have that. So this is basically was one of the I can show these all day because there's lots of them all over the city. This is a rescue platform that doesn't really, give the connotation that this is, a welcoming kind of environment. So a lot of it had to do with the way the city zoning was. Essentially what we did for decades was we tear down a single family house, so now you have a lot that's probably 5,000 to 7,200 square feet that used to have a single family home on it, and we put a 3 or 4 unit on it. So the front yard, in this case, really looks like it should be in the backyard, and then the backyard basically became all parking. So the interpretations of the code were that you could turn your entire backyard into concrete or asphalt. And that really maximized the number of units and bedrooms you could have on the property. So some of these, if we have the ones with the stairway, we would call them sidewalk or no. The other thing we were trying to address with this ordinance was, this is on West Avenue. This is when the weather is, they could be out there today. It's a newer development. There's some landscaping here. But again, what we were trying to do is get some usable green space. And as we thought about this, right across from the YMCA, I recall, a swimming pool. It was probably a 75-degree day. There's a swimming pool in the front yard with a keg in it. And then a bunch of students sitting in a swimming pool with a keg in the middle of the swimming pool. So what we're trying to do with this ordinance is, that's okay. We live in a college town, we understand that. But let's move that off West Avenue. So that's what we're also trying to do with this. Here, this is, I think, Kevin Biondo's building over by the Turbo, but that's more student housing, but that's the swimming pool on the side, because we really, as this is before an ordinance, again, it's a much better quality aesthetic, but still didn't offer green space for the students to recreate. This one's actually in a similar neighborhood, near neighborhood, but it's not a student rental at all. It's more family housing, and the entire backyard, I have a picture, you can see the car in the back, 100% of the backyard is parking lot. So I went by there later, and this is family in the pool. So what we're trying to do is create a better environment for not just student housing. We have a lot of student housing in town, but also for families that need a place to, chill out, so to speak. This one deals with parking. This is somehow there was an interpretation in the ordinance that that front yard setback can be used for parking. And so we know that people drive over the handicap ramps to park here. So what the city did with another program is we bought that blue house. So we bought that blue house. Actually, we bought, I think, a little yellow or white one next to it. What we're doing is we're selling 17 feet of this lot to this guy. I think the ownership changed hands. I can't think of his name. He's going through the city council right now. We're rezoning 17 feet of that lot, and we're giving 17 feet to a single-family home in the back and 17 feet to this guy. And in exchange, he's going to rework his parking and turn that into green space. This is another one. This is down closer to what's now called Cove Park. But, you know, to me that probably didn't meet any ordinance, but it's there and it's hard to retrofit that stuff. But it really shows how we took a single-family home lot and we put what's probably a 4-unit on a single-family lot. I don't want to use a blank slide here. This is some slides about parking in the front yard. Dave, this is an old slide, so it's probably no longer a violation. I think it is. You can't have indoor furniture outside, right? So this would be a violation that we didn't talk about pretty much. This is where a whole backyard becomes a parking. And my guess is, you know, that this car is for this house, but they drive through the other yard to get to that parking. So, again, not really standards for what is suitable for off-street parking. This, I think, was a house that had, you know, there was a lot here. This parking here is mostly for this big, I don't know how many units there are. This is at about 9th and State Street. So the picture really isn't about this stuff. It's about, you know, this is really an unimproved parking lot here. This is on Crosse Street. I think this was zoned commercial. For some reason, we couldn't really write a ticket because this is parking in the front yard, but it's zoned commercial. This is Patiago. This is gone now. Because it's commercial. We gotta get Pat to build something. This is over off of, I think that's State Street too. So we're still on the eye for this. The police department is helping now in some ways with parking in the front yard. This came up in 1989. It was a problem in 1989 during the Zoning Housing Study Committee, and it's still a problem at least as far back as 2005, and I know today. The other thing we're trying to do with this ordinance, again, you can see that it's essentially perhaps different property owners, but it's just one sea of parking. What we tried to do with the multifamily design standards is allow property owners, if you own property side by side, you could share parking. We'd have landscaping, so this area over here might be required to be some landscaping rather than just have 100% of the rear property. So what we're now seeing is some recreation space back here. What we did to try to alleviate concerns about density, because if we were going to require green space for stormwater, require green space, usable green space for recreating, and some green space buffers in here was, we shrunk the size of the parking space down from 180 square feet to 164 square feet. So what our commitment was, we're going to put all these new requirements in. We didn't really want folks to lose their density value, if you will, of their property. So we allowed the parking spaces to be smaller, which then can be used for the recreation space. The other thing we didn't see a lot of was bike parking, places for bike parking. And then this is kind of an example too of, this would be the front yard setback. This is, I think on, this is Rudy's is the other side of the street. This is another kind of Bianco, or his family's property. But having parking lot right up to the street, we're trying to avoid, and then a decent place for people to park their bikes. So again, this is what we saw a lot of.